Okay. Great. So we did a little small talk before I started recording about injuries. So it was actually a perfect lead in to why ergonomics should be a priority in 2026. So I'm excited to have Zeena here. Zeena is a has presented to the HR Rebels before, so she's a veteran here, and we are excited to have her back again sponsoring and presenting to the Rebels and this very important topic as we kick off the new year. So I'm going to turn it over to you. If you need anything, let me know, and I'm happy to manage the chat for you.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, everybody, I'm Zeena. Thank you for having me, Michelle. I love to be here. I would love to find out a little bit more about you on the call. So if you don't mind opening up your chat box and just letting me know, first of all, where you're calling from today, so where you are. Second of all, if your team that you work with is either work from home or hybrid or in office, I would love to have that information as well. And then if you're willing to tell me maybe how many employees you have, that would be helpful as well. But not required at all. It will come up in a little bit. I'll ask for a little volunteer, but welcome everybody. A little bit about me. I am a certified posture alignment specialist. I'm also a certified posture ergonomic assessment specialist. So when we were talking before the recording started, I was mentioning that I do posture alignment therapy, which is basically corrective exercise therapy. So I wear two hats. I work with individuals at times and sometimes employees from corporations on their posture and improving their posture. And then I also work with the ergonomics because they do go hand in hand. So you're going to get a little bit of information today about ergonomics, about research and science and all sorts of fun stuff, but also about posture and how that impacts everybody. So thank you. All right, beautiful. We have a lot of virtual, in office, remote, remote. Let's see, remote. Remote. Okay, a little bit of in office as well. All right, so that's just good information for me to have. A little bit about me also. My business is entirely virtual. We do all of our work virtually. I do one-on-one posture therapy, as I mentioned, ergonomic assessments, desk exercise solutions. And I teach a lot of corporate workshops for bigger teams. So I've taught over 300 workshops for Google, Microsoft, Deloitte, on some other big companies that I'm sure you've heard of. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you for tuning in. So a little bit about the mission of the company. So our goal is to inspire office workers, and we do this. We want to decrease their pain and increase productivity. Their two are hand in hand, and we do this through results-driven ergonomics program as well as posture exercise program. So we're actually going to be doing a little bit of movement and exercise today at your desk. I didn't want to warn you way too far in advance because it might discourage you from showing up. But if you're on camera and you're willing to join in, and even if you're off camera, would love it if you would join in when we get to that. But I am going to start with a little bit of information about ergonomics programming and some of the research that's come out. And we're actually going to do a little ROI exercise. And then we'll talk about posture and active posture breaks, which is going to be the exercise portion of today's little workshop. We'll talk about how to sit and stand. So you're actually going to walk away with information on exactly how you should be sitting and standing at your workstation. I'll give you some information on HR leaders to prevent risk. We'll talk about posture deviations that'll come a little earlier. I'll go over a little bit on some easy desk equipment solutions, and then I'll finish with some of the offerings that we have here at Vertical Line to see if it might be a match for you or your company. So thank you for all the information in the chat. This is really, really helpful. Appreciate you. Okay, so let's dive in. And by the way, I am very much an interactive teacher. So if you have questions, please type them in the chat or unmute. You can feel free to interrupt me. We're a small group here. So please, don't just listen and multitask, really, ask questions and engage with me. So I'm going to dive in with just a little information about what the human body was actually designed for, right? I'm sure you've heard this before. Our body was designed for a life in the wild. We were designed to hunt and gather and lift and pull and run and squat and hike. And instead, we're sitting and standing and driving and texting and calling and typing and reading. And raise your hand if this is you majority of the day, right? My hand is raised, right? Chase's hand is raised, right? So this is a lot of us. And especially if you're working remotely, if you're working from home, you are obviously clicking from meeting to meeting versus getting up and walking from meeting to meeting. So I just want to remind you that, especially if you're working from home, this problem can sometimes often be worse versus getting up and moving, to a different conference room or whatever it might be for your meeting. So we really need to be paying attention to what our bodies are doing all day long. And that brings me to the topic of ergonomics, right? You came here today because you wanted to learn something about ergonomics, or maybe you know something about it. Obviously, if you have a manufacturing company, as Dora mentioned, you might know a lot about ergonomics. But ergon means work and nomics means law. So it really is the law around how we work. Okay. And we're not going to change the landscape of how we work today, right? We're all going to be confined to a desk on some level, unless, again, you're working in manufacturing. And I'm specifically going to be talking about desk and desk workers today, just to be clear on that. And oftentimes these desk workers are sitting, not moving. So if we're going to be confined to one space, we do really want to make it the best space possible. So that's what we're going to be focused on today, figuring out how to do that for people. Okay, so the case for ergonomics programming. So first of all, I want to remind you that lower back pain is the leading cause of disability. This is a global burden of disease, so this is a global problem. And for every, musculoskeletal injuries and the workers' compensation cost and cumulative yearly cost is in the 15 to $20 billion range. So it's a really big number. But really, what's important for you and your employees is the link to productivity. We know that's really important. So this study shows us here, let me get my little laser pointer on here. The study shows us here that, if people take out of every 100 people on a team, 15 of those people are going to take sick leave, and 5 of those 15 people do not go back to work within a month. Okay, and this is a review of 34 studies, so pretty accurate data here. 15 out of every 100 people take sick leave, and 5 of those 15 people don't go back to work within a month. So really big numbers. That's going to affect your productivity, your financial resources, all of that, right? And then we also have some research here that shows us that if somebody's experiencing neck or shoulder or hand kind of symptoms, they could be experiencing up to a 36% loss in productivity. So lots of reasons why we need to make sure that people are healthy, that they're pain-free, and that they're getting the help that they need, and that they're working safely at their workstations, right? I mean, just like we would with a worker in a manufacturing situation, we want to make sure they're safe. We forget that there's some situations at our desk that are truly unsafe. When I look at people hunched over a kitchen desk for 5 years, ever since they went home from COVID, and they're already in pain with 4 or 5 different points of their body, this is where we realize there really is a safety risk here. Okay. So we want, especially work from home, you don't know what they look like when they're working from home. So a couple more topics here, research studies here for you. There was a Washington State Department of Labor did a review of 250 case studies and showed that if we can implement ergonomic solutions, we can see a 58% reduction in employee absenteeism, a 75% reduction in work days. And I've seen this in multiple studies. One of them that had 88%, this one has 75%. So we know that that range is somewhere between 75 and 90% reduction in lost work days, and then a 48% reduction in employee turnover. Okay, because if somebody goes out for a carpal tunnel injury, I can tell you that's a 30 to 40, 50, sometimes $1,000 injury. Carpal tunnel, just the tiny little wrist. Really, really big numbers there. And then obviously you need to deal with replacing the employee, all those soft costs that we don't think about right off the bat. And then finally here, this is upper extremity MSD. So what that refers to is your neck, your upper back, your shoulder discomfort, right? So again, implementing ergonomics, we can see a 37% reduction. So we see here, like their lost days was about 6.2 days, but for the control group, 9.8 days. So this was the group that got the ergonomic intervention, okay? So I'm sure hopefully you're all on board with me for understanding that this is important to pay attention to, that the numbers are on our side in terms of ergonomics. And I want to take a quick moment here just to open up something from Cornell University. So Cornell University has done a ton of research. They're the leading researcher in the ergonomic space, and they have this ROA estimator. So I thought it'd be fun to run some numbers here. So I'm going to put in an average annual salary of about 50,000. Okay, so I don't want to ask any of you what your average salaries are. An average number of employees. So I think I saw somebody here put in 55 employees. So Emily will put in your 55 employees here. And then asks us to enter the expected percentage of productivity increase. And if you read up here, it says, again, this Washington State study of office ergonomics showed that the median productivity increase following an ergonomic invention was 12%. So I'm going to be really conservative here and put in 8%. Okay. And then in terms of average cost per employee, I'm just going to put $500. Maybe that's a new chair. Maybe that's a ergonomic assessment. Maybe that's education, whatever that is. We're just going to put that number in here. And then I'm going to calculate that out. It shows us here that our 1-year ROI is 800%. Okay, 3-year ROI, 2,400%. And then the payback period in terms of months is 1.5 months. Okay, so another little proof there that any money that you invest right now on ergonomic interventions is going to benefit you greatly in terms of ROI. Okay. So, and again, reminder, please feel free to ask any questions if any of that, triggered anything for you. I'm happy to answer them. But let's move into now, what can you do as HR directors, okay? And when we're dealing with ergonomic interventions, we have two different controls, so to speak. We have an engineering control, which is going to be changing the equipment that someone's working. And then we have work controls. And I think of this as educating the employee. Okay. Now, I do believe they go hand in hand. Many, many times I've dealt with companies that say, we have standing desks for all of our employees. But when you dig in and you talk to the employees, they're not using their standing desk. They have it set at the wrong height. They don't understand the frequency at which they need to be sitting and standing. Oftentimes they decide to stand all day long and they end up in more pain. So we really have to do both hand in hand. Change the equipment and educate the employee to learn how to use that equipment at the same time. So I'm going to focus a little bit on educating the employee by educating you a little bit. So we're going to dive into my favorite topic next, which is the topic of posture. So I want you to raise your hand. Please be honest here. Let's all own up. I'm going to raise my hand. If this looks like you at any point during the day, if you're kind of rounding over your desk, looking at your laptop, your head is forward, please don't make me be the only one raising my hand. Are you all sitting perfectly? Emily's like, I'm gonna half raise my hand there. All right, Sherry's raised her hand. Beautiful. So yeah, that we can find ourselves hunching over our computer on occasion, and that's okay on occasion. It's okay every once in a while to just find yourself get a little slouchy. But what we want to avoid is longer than 30 minutes of stationary slouching. That's where something called creep can occur. Okay, our spine was not designed to be in this position. And creep is defined as, a progressive deformation of the body, right? So if we look at this word here, the body's actually deforming. And as a result of the deforming, then inflammation can occur, and then inflammation comes pain, right? So it's a big sort of chain reaction. So we want to avoid 30 minutes. If you forget anything else that I teach you today, it's that we want to try to keep this slouchy position to under 30 minutes at a time so that we really move in and out of it, but not sit in it all day long. I also want to introduce you to the topic of something called an active posture break. So the word active posture break is something I came up with because I work on posture all day long, but it is actually a concept heavily, again, supported by science. So back to Cornell University, and they're one of the leading researchers on this topic. They really want people to sit for about 20 minutes, stand for about 8 minutes, and then stretch for 2 minutes every 30 minutes. Raise your hand if you feel like you could do that. My hand is not raised. All right, Jason's got it. Michelle's got it. All right, that would be challenging for me. I'm going to keep it really honest with you. It is a very strong recommendation. I make it more reasonable for a lot of my clients and kind of amortize that out to about 2 hours of sitting, 30 minutes of standing, 2 hours of sitting, 30 minutes of standing. But yeah, Michelle's right. She has to put in the calendar. But I just want to show you, yes, they want us to be moving for 2 minutes every 30 minutes. That's a 4-minute break every hour in terms of movement break. So that is the recommendation. If you can get 50% of the way there, I would be very happy because the majority of the people are not moving at all. Okay. Yeah, sure. I would have to add it to our calendar as well. But just again, to review the research here, this was an interesting study that came out in 2021. So it was during COVID. And it talked about three different groups. One group implemented postural shift interventions. One group did active sitting, stretching breaks, and then one group was the control group. And the two movement groups saw a reduction in neck and low back pain between 55 and 81%, and a reduction of the reoccurrence between 65 and 78%. So again, big numbers here. Small little thing that we can educate the employee a work control, something that you as HR leader should begin doing on your own so you understand the benefit and the value of that, right? But that is a small little engineering control that we can implement that can have huge numbers in terms of reducing these MSDs, upper extremity and lower extremity MSDs, right? So introducing the active posture break. We're going to do one today, right now. I'm probably going to do one every 3 or 4 slides, so don't be alarmed. You don't have to change your clothes. We're not going to be getting super sweaty today. I have all the nice, easy, gentle ones for you today since you weren't expecting it. But again, the recommendation is every 30 to 60 minutes, take this 1 to 2 minute break. And if you're going to take a break, you might as well take a break that's going to help improve your posture at the same time. Why not, right? We're going to do stuff that's actually going to stretch our chest, engage our back muscles, and do things that are going to improve our upper body and our lower body posture. And that is what our specialization over here is at Verticline. So let's dive in. I am going to take you through a couple exercises today. If I give you something that does not feel good in your body, please don't do it. You can say wait to the end. You'll have my contact information. You can contact me with questions. I can give you a different option, but please don't do anything that hurts. We're looking for gentle stretching, gentle engagement in the muscle groups when we do these exercises, okay? And Sherry, thank you for standing. I appreciate that. I'll probably stand at some point too. All right, so I'm gonna have you all scoot to the front of your chair, wherever you are, and make sure your feet are firmly planted on the ground. Thank you for joining in, those of you on camera, and those of you off camera, please join in as well so you can really feel this in your own body. It's okay that you're off camera. I just can't see you, but I'm gonna cheer you on. You're gonna grab onto the back of your chair. You're going to squeeze your shoulder blades together behind you, lift your chest a little bit, bring your eyes up the wall, and we're going to hold this position for about a minute. Keep going. If you're standing, you can do the standing with your hands together. If holding your hands together is challenging because you might be particularly tight in your muscle groups, you can place a towel or a strap or something in your hands to help you. Okay, so keep going. We have about 30 seconds to go. It is very important that you hold this position for the full minute. What we're trying to do here is really elongate the muscles in the front of our chest, okay? Those muscles, those chest muscles, your pectoral muscles, when they are tight, they pull us into this poor posture position. So this is my favorite stretch to give. I give it to almost anybody who's doing an ergonomic assessment, and I recommend that they do it at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. It's easy to remember, it's easy to implement, and it can have really big results in that you can feel almost immediately better. So come on out of there, roll your shoulders back, and give me a thumbs up if you felt that. If that felt good for you and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, that did feel amazing. And maybe do it a couple more times, it will feel more amazing because you'll start to pull your shoulders back and get a little bit more opening in that chest and shoulders. And that actually leads me into a little bit of education of what exactly is good posture. So I've alluded to it, obviously. We don't want to be hunching over our computer, but posture is actually a full body problem. So earlier, before we started our recording today, we were talking about knee pain, foot pain, all sorts of different aches and things that we have going on. And sometimes those pains are a result of impact injuries or a sport you might be playing or things like that. But oftentimes those injuries are coming from the body being out of alignment. Okay, well, what does that mean? What does a well-aligned body look like? When we're looking from the front of the body, we want to make sure that the feet, the knees, the hips, and the shoulders are symmetrical. We want them to be symmetry from right to left. We want the feet facing forward. And ideally, we want the hands by the sides of the body with the palms facing the body. Okay, that is an ideal standing position. And again, that symmetry is important. We're going to see some slides coming down the pipeline here that's going to show you some examples of what asymmetry looks like and how that can really impact you, all right? But the side angle here is the most important view. And when I'm doing an ergonomic assessment with someone virtually, we ask them to send us pictures of the side angle. That is the most important angle. So we can evaluate how aligned is the body, because this is where the body is most efficient. This is where we have the least amount of pain. The moment our head comes forward, the moment the shoulders start to round, the moment that we start to fall out of this alignment into what we call a posture deviation is when those aches and pains start to act up on us, right? So ideally, in a good side angle view, we're looking for ear, over shoulder, over hip, over knee, over ankle. We're looking for good lumbar curvature here, and we're looking for good glute development. Okay, that's really important. A good glute development and a good lumbar curvature I'm gonna come back and show you how important this is a little bit later when it comes to ergonomics, but it's important to understand the value for someone's regular body standing and moving through space. They need to have a lumbar curvature and good glute development to be a shock absorber for the rest of the spine. Without it, you get more musculoskeletal disorders going up through the rest of the spine. Okay, so there is our little instruction on what exactly is good posture. And now I'm going to highlight a couple common desk posture deviations. The first of which we already showed you earlier with the gentleman who was slouching over his computer, right? We call that kyphosis. It's a technical term, a posture deviation, and it indicates rounded shoulders and forward head posture, right? So we talked about this line. This is actually called the plumb line. I didn't say that out loud, but this is called the plumb line. It's an important line. So if we're looking at her plumb line here, okay, you can see it goes through her shoulder, but it does not go through her ear. Her head is way forward. That is a 10-pound bowling ball that for every inch or two that goes forward gets heavier and heavier on that neck and spine. And so we really want to avoid that. That's where the fatigue and tightness and all that comes from. So we're going to mitigate this two ways. We're going to mitigate it by teaching people how to actually hold themselves in good posture, what exercises can help with that, and then also what does your equipment and your desk setup need to look like in order to maintain good posture throughout the day easily. We don't want people holding this tight position all day long. That's going to be tension. We want it to be easy and seamless for them to be able to use their tools at their desk to sit properly. Another common deviation that you may not have heard about, you've probably heard of kyphosis or seen kyphosis. If you don't want to be me sitting in a mall watching people walk by all day long. I'm like 95% of the population has kyphosis, so it's very hard for me. But a good majority of people also have this posture deviation called a posterior pelvic tilt. I'm going to stand to demonstrate it a little bit. So it's when my pelvis is actually tucked underneath me. Okay, you can see I don't have that lumbar curvature in the spine. I'm already slouching over. Okay, I'm exaggerating my kyphosis now. And this is an example of somebody who's like maybe going to the gym and trying to pull their shoulders back, but they're not getting a lot of progress because their pelvis is forcing the spine to round and arch. And if you look on camera on the screen here, you can see, when you're sitting improperly at a workstation, you might get that rounding. Excuse me for a moment. I'm dying of heat here, so I'm going to turn my my fireplace off. One moment. It was cold when I started this morning. I am on the West Coast over here. Okay, so we've got rounding here. You can see the rounding here and the lumbar curvature on the lumbar spine here. So again, we're going to mitigate that two ways. Movement. We need movement of the pelvis in order to get it into the right position. And then making sure we're sitting properly with proper lumbar support. We need that lumbar support to keep the pelvis in the right position, because when it's not, this happens. The body slouches all day long. Okay? All right. Finally, this one's called a shoulder disparity. I also call this mousing shoulder. So if we're mousing all day long with one arm, you have to consider that a potential repetitive stress injury, right? Moving that arm back and forth. So we can often see from a posture perspective, the shoulder turn in or the shoulder elevate. So you can see that here, rounded shoulder, or you can see an unevenness in the shoulder. We talked about symmetry and how important that symmetry is from right to left, right? So you can see here there's no symmetry. And this is somebody that was dealing with some shoulder and neck pain. So again, we're going to mitigate this by making sure we're using proper equipment. There are plenty of unilateral options out there to be able bilateral options to be able to mouse with both hands or put the mousing unit closer to your keyboard or other solutions to help resolve this, as well as making sure we get movement that's symmetrical, that helps to get symmetry back in the body again. Get the scapula, which are the shoulder blades, engaged, working hard and symmetrical. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to our second exercise. Any questions so far? Thought I would just take a moment to pause. I've covered a lot of information so far on posture. Okay, so let's dive into our next exercise. I'm going to have you scoot to the front of our chair again. This one really deals with symmetry of the body, of the shoulders. We're going to bring our arms out to a T position. Now, if you are somebody who tends to get neck and shoulder tension, bring your hands down a little bit lower, okay? Really work on getting the shoulders away from your ears. Thank you, Scott, for coming on camera. Beautiful. Now, squeeze your shoulder blades together behind you and keep them squeezed. And now keep that squeeze as you circle your arms forward. We're going to do about 40 circles forward. So hang with me. You can go a little fast or you can go a little slow. It's really up to you. Should be feeling a little work here. We're squeezing the shoulder blades or scapula. I call that the same thing. They're interchangeable, but those are those bones back here. Keep going. We're going to squeeze them together, keep them squeezed. Now pause for a moment, turn your palms face up, squeeze back again, and now circle backwards about 40 times. And this direction might be a little bit more challenging. So smile if you're feeling it. If you're not smiling, then we're going to do 50 more. If you're smiling, then we'll do 10 more. How's that? Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And come on out of there. You can roll those shoulders back and give me a thumbs up if you felt that. So again, yeah, beautiful. So just an easy, simple way to get those muscles engaged and working. A lot of what we're doing here is neurological. We're retraining the brain, how our body needs to be held in space, and we're training those important muscles to hold the body in that space. So we've stretched out our chest. We've now engaged the muscles in the back of our body to help us hold better posture. Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you for joining in and participating. I love it. Okay, so let's dive in now to what is good sitting posture, right? We know what good standing posture looks like, all right? We know that the ear over the shoulder, over the hip, over the knee, over the ankle, okay? So we want to do the same thing here at the sitting desk. So here's my ear, over my shoulder, over my elbow, over my hip. Okay, obviously, if we're standing, it would be over knee and ankle, but the sitting, we want to try to sit properly. And I love it. I'm seeing some of y'all adjust yourself on camera. Please do so. This is your opportunity to make sure you're in a proper position, right? You cannot be a leader if you yourself are not sitting in good, proper ergonomics. We want to make sure that the elbow is under the shoulder. That is really, really critical. Elbow under the shoulder while you're typing. And we want that elbow to be at 90 to 110-degree angle. Okay. Well, that means that the wrist is either at the same level as the elbow or slightly lower than the elbow. Okay. So, and this is all education that we would give your employees if, looking for something like that. I, again, want to educate you because you are the leaders here. Really just basic geometry here. So elbow 90-degree angle, wrist slightly lower than the elbow or on the same plane. And that is so that we can have a good, healthy wrist position. We talked about carpal tunnel. We talked about how it's a $30,000 to $50,000 claim, right? Between the health insurance costs, the replacement costs, all those things that we talked about. So the neutral wrist is really important. If your elbow is lower than your wrist, so if your wrist is higher than your elbow, you're going to be bending at the wrist. If it's too far down, you're going to be bending at the wrist. So that is why that 90 to 110-degree angle is very important. And then in terms of your arm rests, there's a misnomer that you all have to use your arm rests. It's not true. I say arm rests often get in the way. They're great for video calls like this while you're listening and we're chit-chatting and things like that. But when you're actually typing, you should really only use the armrest if you can size them properly. This picture is deceiving. This armrest was too high for me. And it was too wide for me. If I had put my arms on the armrest, my elbows would be too wide, my wrist would be bending while I'm typing, and it would elevate my shoulders. All bad things. So I am not actually using the armrest. I have my elbows resting on the inside, just kind of floating. They're not resting, they're just floating in space just below my shoulders, and that's perfectly fine. The majority of people work like that when they type, and it's a very comfortable position. You do want to have palm support under your hands. I'm sitting on the slide for a while because I have a shortened version of the ergonomics education for you today, so I'm trying to cover all the topics for you instead of a whole hour on ergonomics, which is what I usually do. All right, in terms of lower body, again, we talked about that lumbar support. Probably the number one thing I look for, because without that lumbar support and that proper pelvic position, the upper body posture is going to probably be out of alignment. So that is really important, getting some sort of lumbar support for the employee. Again, want the hip to be at that 90 to about 120-degree angle. So your knee can be at the same level as the hip or lower. There are many, many people who feel much better with their knees lower than their hips. That is because we open up the hip angle a little bit and it makes it easier for you to keep your pelvis in that neutral position. If your knees are higher, and let me just demonstrate this. If my knees are higher, which doesn't happen often, but if my knees are higher, my pelvis is going to tuck. If my knees are lower, my pelvis is going to be in more neutral. Okay, so 90 to 120 degrees on that one there. Toes are facing forward, feet are flat on the floor. You ideally want your ankles to be at about a 90-degree angle. So if you have Yeah, I know. Thank you, Scott. I'm currently barefoot. I'm wearing socks because it's chilly, but yes, barefoot is. I'm a postural alignment specialist, so I'm going to be a barefoot person. But yes, there's really no need to wear high heels if you're working from home. But I understand if you've got to put nice, appropriate shoes for your job, then that's different. But when you're doing your exercises, ideally, we'd like you to do it with no shoes on. So, and then just a quick note on footstools. So footstools are great. I love adding them to workstation setups, especially if you have to elevate your chair to get the proper elbow angle. Now you might need a footstool. So if you've got a footstool directly underneath your knees, you can have it flat. If you're going to put it out in front of you, you want to have it angled towards you slightly because you want that ankle joint at that 90-degree angle. And the moment you put your foot out in front of you, you're going to need to angle the feet slightly towards you. So a lot of people do really well with the footrest slightly in front of them, angled towards them. Okay. All right, standing. So if you've got a sit-stand solution, we want to maintain the same posture basics that we talked about. So ear over shoulder, over elbow, over hip, over knee, over ankle, right? Elbow underneath that shoulder. You can see my wrist is a little bit lower than my elbow here, so I have a slightly wider elbow angle in my standing position, which is great. Eyes are looking directly forward, feet about hip width distance apart, all that fun stuff, toes facing forward. Okay. All right, so a little pop quiz. What is wrong with the sitting position? Now that you know the basics, type it in the chat. What is wrong with this position? Yep, leaning over, beautiful. What else? And shoulders too far from the computer, beautiful. You got it, Sherry. Yeah. Sorry, my scroll is not. Wrist placement, rounded shoulders, beautiful. You all pass. You all get certified as posture specialists. Yeah, beautiful. And Sherry kind of nailed it on the head when she said that I call this reach. We want to make sure that someone's not working at their computer station with too far of a reach, right? Yeah, monitors are too low. Exactly. So this accentuates the rounded shoulders. It can place tension on the neck and shoulders. Remember we talked about squeezing the shoulder blades? We did that in our previous exercise that we just did, right? We were squeezing our shoulder blades while we were doing our arm circles. Well, when we're sitting at our desk, we want to have a little bit of a squeeze. We want to make sure the scapula is in their proper position. And when our arms are in front of us and we're rounding, we can't do that. The scapula is separating. It's called protraction. And when your scapula is together, it's called retraction, okay? And then this also increases the chances of the pelvis being tucked underneath a little bit, right? For reaching out in front of us, that pelvis kind of gets into the wrong position as well. So good job. Thank you all for participating on that. Okay, we're going to do a little standing exercise next. So let's stand up. This one's going to be a 1-minute hold. I'm going to give you a couple options here in terms of what you can do to make this comfortable for you. Um, but a beautiful, excellent. Oh, I love it, Scott. Thank you for that feedback. Okay, so for this, we're going to interlace our fingers like so. We're going to stand with our feet in a parallel position. Okay, make sure you look down and your feet are in parallel. Remember, we talked about good posture. We don't really stand with our feet open like this. This is not good posture. This is how we don't want to stand. This is good posture with the feet facing forward. So try to make sure your feet are facing forward. Your hands are interlaced. You can bring your hands all the way above you as the picture indicates, or you can have it slightly in front of you if you have neck pain, shoulder pain, or you're just looking for a somewhat way to ease into this. If you want to try the whole exercise, you can bring the hands all the way up, but watch me for a moment. We want to avoid this, where the hips bail forward, okay? So try to keep your hips over your heels, like you can wiggle your toes, pull your hands back as far as they will go, and then take your hands up if you would like to look up. That's optional for you. I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute starting right now. This is an endurance exercise. So we are trying to build endurance in your muscles. So we do want you to feel a little fatigued, but if you feel too fatigued, you can just go ahead and come out of it, take a break, shake it out, come back to it, or take a modified version. Keep going. I'm going to just talk at you. But what we're doing here is we're strengthening the upper back muscles here. The upper back, the middle back, the lower back, the glutes. We're working on strengthening all those muscles in the back side of the body. We talked about taking an exercise break, working on a posture at the same time, right? You have about 26 seconds to go. Make sure you're breathing, all right? Pull your shoulders down. Make sure your weight is in your heels. You can wiggle your toes. Try to, find a little pressure into your heels there so that you can feel the weight loaded into the back side of the body. You've got 10 more seconds. You're almost there. Make sure, again, you're breathing and you're not holding your breath for 3, 2, and 1, and come on out of there. Give me a thumbs up if you felt that one. Yeah, those of you that were standing, you looked amazing. Great job, great job, great job. Beautiful. Okay, so there's our overhead extension exercise. Oh my goodness gracious, Scott. I didn't read the second half of your note there. So you just said that I did join in with the rotation exercise and it was painful, but now after that exercise, much of the pain I had is gone. Amazing. There's something to really be said for resetting the shoulder position, and that chest stretch that we started with and the arm circles I gave you are my two favorite ones. This last one's great too, but the arm circles and the chest stretch are my two favorite because they're sort of a low-hanging fruit, right? You don't need any equipment. You don't have to get out of your chair. It's something you can remember really easily. So yeah, please pass those on to your team. All right. Okay, so I want to circle back a little bit to the engineering controls, right? So the question is always, budget, what can we supply? That's really obviously going to depend on you and your budget. But if I had an ideal scenario here and I could give everybody equipment, I would want, first of all, that everybody to have a high quality adjustable chair. That is the big word there, adjustability. When you're dealing with ergonomics, and you see, like, I'm often on social media and I'll see, advertisements, because my phone hears me talk about it all day long, right? I'll see advertisements for ergonomic equipment and I'll dig in to see what that equipment is, and it has maybe two adjustment points, right? When it comes to a chair, you really want to have a chair that has some basic adjustment points. So height adjustment, lumbar height adjustment. So your employee that's 5'2" versus 6'2", their lumbar is going to be at a different place of the chair. All right. So height adjustment, lumbar height adjustment. So what I meant by height adjustment is the height actual chair. Lumbar adjustment. Seat back adjustment. Okay. So making sure that the back of the chair can adjust high enough that we can support the body while we're typing in our computer. Oftentimes we have chairs that are kind of stuck in this back position. So people tend to round when they're typing at their computer, right? Because we don't have that feedback to keep their scapula and back up against the back of the chair. So we want to have that seat back adjustment. Some chairs have a seat pan adjustment. If you're not sure what that is, I can show you on camera really quickly. Yeah, seat pan adjustment. Yeah. So seat pan adjustment is where the bottom of the seat pan comes forward and back like so. So this is going to be a necessary thing for, again, height of different employees. So your 5'2" employee is going to have the seat pan way further back. Obviously, your 6'2" employee is going to need that seat pan a little further forward, so there's more support on the back of the leg. And while I'm standing here, I'll just demonstrate lumbar seat back adjustment. Every chair is a little bit different. This is an this is an ergocentric air-centric chair. And this is how they adjust their back, but you can see it's got a nice about 4-inch range up and down. And that way you can make sure that that lumbar supports exactly where you need it to be, okay? And then the other piece of it is armrest adjustment. I'm a big fan these days of the chairs that have flip up armrests, because oftentimes we want to make sure that we're really close to the desk and we've got our elbows under our shoulders, and armrests can sometimes get in the way of that. But either way, this particular chair has a couple different armrest adjustments. It can go up, it can swivel, and it can come lateral and medial. So again, you have a smaller framed person's going to need that to be a little closer to their body, but then you can move it out a little bit if you've got a larger frame. So adjustability is going to be the key component of any chair. And then my biggest beef with the sit stand solution community is how low a sit stand desk goes down. So let's think about this from a size perspective. So your average female, and by the way, I bring up female because females tend to have a higher risk of musculoskeletal disorders simply because of what I'm about to tell you right now, desk height. The average female is 5'4". The average desk is 29 inches, right? It's really, really hard to get your elbow angle to the correct height. If you're at that height, your chair is like an average chair and the desk is at 29 inches. 90% of the time, the solution isn't where it needs to be. Sit stand solutions is a great problem. I mean, it's a great way to solve that problem, right? Except a majority of sit stand solutions only get down to 28 inches. So you're only giving somebody an extra inch. Luckily, I found a couple different desks that do go down to like 23, 24 inches, which is amazing for all different employees that can, one, your employee that's smaller and shorter, but two, that sit stand solution is going to give them that chance to take those sit stand breaks as well. So a couple reasons why it's really great to get that sit stand solution, but also one that's going to go low enough for their height. Yeah. Yes, on how you need to converse with Ergonomics to fix it. Exactly. Oh, it's stuck at the lowest setting. Yeah, that's not not fun. You want to try to get that to go up and down. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Keyboard tray. I'm about to get to that, Chandra. Thank you for highlighting that. Yeah, keyboard tray is a great solution as well. And one of my biggest nemesis, so as a reminder, I do mostly virtual assessments, right? And when I'm doing work from home employees and I pop into their virtual assessment and they have a desk that has drawers right underneath them, it is the worst of all scenarios because I can't get them high enough because their legs are going to bump into the desk. I can't put a keyboard tray because of the desk drawers. So if you're shopping for desks, please don't buy desks that have drawers right underneath where the keyboard might go. On the sides is fine, but not where the keyboard wants to go. So just keep that in mind if you're shopping for desks. But yes, keyboard trays are awesome. And here we go. Here's where I'm going to show you some other options. So I work with some companies that have really small budgets. And so chairs and desks are not an option. So we do our best to modify, in other ways. So we're going to give them some back support or lumbar support. So this is a great little back support that you can place on the back of the chair. If you want lumbar support, you're going to keep it this way. If you want thoracic support, which is the upper back, you're going to flip it, have it on the top end. This is great for chairs that don't have great reclines or that are stuck in a far recline. Same thing with this. I love this one. This is a Kensington product that I adore that really helps support the upper back. You adding a cushion to elevate the employee, really easy. Putting a footstool on so that they can get high enough so that their feet are not dangling. Dangling feet, really big precursor to lower back pain. Clamp-on keyboard trays, you can also do better keyboard trays, but a clamp-on's an easy solution and tends to be really affordable for that work from home employees. The laptop stand, this is an interesting looking one, but we have tons of laptop stand options where we can elevate a laptop, get it to the right height, bring it so it's equal to the other monitors. Monitor stands to get them up higher, split keyboards, tons of options. I could go on for an entire hour on split keyboard options. Smaller, bigger hand mouse, smaller hand, vertical mouse. Vertical mouse is my first line of defense for anyone dealing with any kind of wrist or neck pain or even shoulder pain. And then palm support. We don't want support on the wrist. We want support on the palms when we're typing, okay? All right, let's see. It is 30 inches. It has just two computers mounted. So I'm pretty much always bumping my legs out. Yeah, I wonder why I have pain. Exactly, Scott. Thank you for highlighting that. So, that's a tough solution to that problem. Really, the only solution I would give somebody is replace your desk. I mean, it is an investment that you will not regret. And if you can replace it with a sit-stand solution, then you've just increased your movement significantly. And just to quickly highlight, I don't think I have that slide on here just because this was a shortened little workshop, but the science behind sit-stand solutions is that we really don't want to be standing for longer than 30 minutes at a time. You want to think of standing similar to sitting in that it's immobile, right? I'm giving you movement breaks. In fact, we're about to take another movement break. I'm giving you movement breaks because our body needs movement. So standing is awesome, yes, but we don't need people to stand all day. I get a ton of pushback from people who say, well, I don't want to stand. It hurts me more to stand. And so I ask, well, how long are you standing for? And then they usually get an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. I'm like, no, that's too much. What we really need is that mobility. So my recommendation is usually 1 to 2 hours of sitting, 30 minutes of standing. 1 to 2 hours of sitting, 30 minutes of standing, back and forth. So we can get that movement break in, and then you throw your posture exercise breaks in there as well. Okay, I think this is our final exercise. So let's stand up for this one, last one here. This one is really great for the pelvic positions here to making sure that we are not in that posterior pelvic tilt. We need to get some mobility into the pelvis, so very important. So grab on, if you want me to see you on camera, you can grab on the back of your chair. If you prefer to use your desk for your hands, that's fine too. It just will be harder for me to see you if that's what you desire. You're gonna have your feet facing forward again, and we're gonna come down to we're kind of in a nice L-shaped position with the body. And now we're gonna tuck our pelvis, round it, get a nice stretch in your lower back, and look down towards your toes. Now, when you go in the opposite direction, you're gonna bend your knees and really try to arch as you look up. If you've done cat-cow on your hands and knees, this is similar, but when you're looking up, you wanna bend the knees because your hamstrings might get in the way here of you being able to really get the stretch, okay? And that's okay, we're looking for a hamstring stretch as well. So again, round and look down, you're gonna go back and forth about 10 times. And when you look up, you're gonna bend those knees and really try to arch that lower back. You'll get a stretch in your hamstrings, a stretch in your low back, and you're gonna go back and forth and do this nice and slowly. You can come to the floor on your hands and knees, but again, I don't know what your floors look like. So I'm not going to require you to go look down on your floors today since we don't know if they're hardwood floors or something uncomfortable. So your hands on the back of the chair is going to be a little bit more accessible for anybody. So we keep going. We'll do about 3 or 4 more. Make sure you're breathing. Yes, looking really good there, Scott. Looking really beautiful, Lillian. Excellent. And everybody else I'm cheering on. Oh, excellent. Emily, I can see you there too. Michelle, you can tell you're doing your exercise. Beautiful. Let's do one more. Oh my goodness, Scott. Scott has been there for 17 months. Well, hopefully this motivated you today. Okay, come on out of there. Give me a thumbs up if you could feel that one. Beautiful. Awesome. All right. So we're almost done with the education portion of today's workshop. I know there's probably a ton of other things, especially if you've been educated in ergonomics. I might not have hit something exactly, but please know that this was a shortened version of today's workshop. So I just hit on a lot of the major points. But yes, there's a lot of other detail that we can go into on keyboards, and I'm happy to answer questions once we get to the end here. So, happy employees is our ergonomic goal, right? So 93% of workers in the tech industry would stay longer at a company if they offered healthier workplace benefits. So I think we all know this. You're here for a reason. You know the benefits, but just wanted to remind you about that. I am going to take a quick moment and just talk about what I offer here at my company. I'm also going to drop a little link in the chat here. So if anything resonated with you and you want to meet with me further to find out pricing on anything for your particular company, feel free to schedule a quick little 15-minute appointment, but I'm just going to go through what we offer. So we do everything virtually, like I said. We have a couple virtual workshops that are highly interactive, similar to today. One is on the topic of posture, one's on ergonomics. So I'll go through all of these individually in a moment. I'll go through them individually. So this is one of our flagship products. It's a 60-minute virtual workshop specifically only on posture. So if you are hesitant to enter into the ergonomic realm because it might open the door of equipment and all that jazz, or you're not quite ready to get there yet, this would be a good place to start because we don't even talk about equipment here. At the very end, we'll go over desk posture, but really we talk about different deviations, what might be going on with knee position, foot position. Today I highlighted 3 different posture deviations. In this workshop, we go over 10. And then we do about 15, 20 minutes of exercises together. So it is a much more in-depth education on posture.
Why
Let's
did you
make
do
sure
that?
we're muted. I'm just going to go ahead and mute that. Beautiful. I think there we go. Perfect. All right. And then we also offer a workshop on ergonomics. So this is where we go over how to sit and stand at your desk. So this is a way to implement the work control, which is educating the employee in a large scale way. Okay, so we go over sitting and standing at the desk. We'll go over equipment recommendations. We'll have a conversation with you first to find out what is your budget, what are you willing, who's paying for it, is the employee paying for it? So we make sure we get that information before we dive into all that. And then all of our products, everything always has exercises in it because we believe strongly is that's a huge part of keeping people healthy at their workstation. So we'll obviously do exercises in this workshop as well. And both of the workshops have either a live sitting assessment. This is going to be a live sitting assessment, and the other one has a live posture assessment as well. Okay. Here's some sample of the exercises. So you all did this one today, but we have 80 or 90 other exercises in our program. We also have an email list that you can join at the end of a workshop. So when the employees are done with their workshop, they can join the email list if they choose to, which will give them reminders and educate them on many, many more exercises. If you love the workshops and you want more regular, options, we do this for a lot of our companies. So we'll come in once a month or maybe twice a month, 30-minute sessions, different topics. We have a 3-page list of topics. We've just added nutrition to the list of topics. We have things on posture. I'm the main instructor for that, ergonomics, and then we have a couple team members that do also meditation. So I just want to let you know we also branch out into other areas of wellness with a team of amazing instructors that are probably what I think the best of the best in terms of leading virtual sessions. And then we do individual ergonomic assessments as well, right? So this is what we do virtually. So again, even if you're in office, we can do this virtually. It just keeps it simple. The employee sends us pictures or video, what they're doing at their desk, and then we'll issue a report to the HR team with product and equipment recommendations, also exercise solutions, and then we can enter them into our email desk program as well so that they can get that continuing education. And then you can fully outsource your ergonomics program to us. So if you're looking for something deeper than wellness. So we recently had a company last year with 600 work from home employees, and we implemented a discomfort survey throughout all of their employee base. We did about 50 a month. So we spread that out over a year so that it wasn't overwhelming for anybody, including the HR team. And then throughout the year, we would, after we would do a discomfort survey, we would tier them into different categories. Some employees did a workshop, some employees got an assessment depending on their risk level. And then we also taught workshops throughout the year and posture breaks and things like that. So again, I dropped a link in the chat there. If there's something that interests you, we can give you some pricing. It would need to know more about your company so that we can price that correctly. And that is it. I've got about 10 minutes to spare, so we can definitely open up for questions. But again, I'll drop my link in the chat so that you have it. If you wanted to schedule some time with me, you can scan that to get my downloadable business card, or you can follow. I think Instagram is probably where the best place to follow these days, where I post all my content, and my website, my email address. So any questions? No.
While people are thinking about questions, I just want to announce that this program has been approved or pre-approved for one general HRCI recertification credit. So if you are HRCI certified, you want to use code 728349 when entering your recertification credits, and that is in the chat. I'll put it back in there too, so it's front and center.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, no, this has been great. I mean, I was going to ask the question, as an HR professional, where would people get started in this journey? And I guess the first step would be to call you. Uh,
Absolutely. They can call me, but also you can just start working on educating the employees. Honestly, there's so much. I recently got a referral. I think it actually came from you, Michelle. And the employee was in significant amounts of pain. And when I say like a 10 out of 10. And when we did their assessment, I literally just corrected the height of their chair, their desk, and then we obviously made some other adjustments. But in a week, the pain level went from a 10 down to a 5. That's huge results in 1 week, right? And that was simply because the equipment hadn't even arrived at that point when I got feedback that they were already feeling better. So there were really, yeah, really easy ways that you can just start by educating them on their posture, educating them on their ergonomics. And then if you're able to provide better desks, better chairs, better equipment, but you could even do little equipment. Like if chairs and chairs are not on the budget this year, maybe they're in the budget next year, but we can still get them a lumbar support or a cushion or something that's going to help get them into a better position and just make them aware, more importantly. So yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
we worked with one of my clients. We worked with a company, and the name is escaping me, but we created lifestyle reimbursement accounts, and we
Mm,
created a home office one. And so we put a certain amount, I think it was like $300. It wasn't a lot of
yeah,
money per employee in the accounts, and they could use it to set up their home office. And so you
yeah,
could do something like that where if they
yep.
need something um, that way. But I also want to comment too around, I think this is a great reactive program, but I think as you're thinking about your programs in 2026, being proactive
Mhm.
on this stuff is really important because I think we think about ergonomics in a reactive way, like when there's somebody in pain or we have a workers' comp claim or an employee's asking for some type of accommodation. We don't always think about it in a proactive way, but this is a proactive way to save the organization money and come up with a strategic program that does just that for your employees.
Exactly. And I will say, especially if you're dealing with remote teams at all, the percentage of employees that are in pain working remotely has not really been accurately tracked because a lot of people don't report their pain because they want to maintain their work from home status and they don't want to become a problem. And I can say this firsthand, having done over 100 assessments last year with remote employees, where people said to me, well, when we went to work from home 5 years ago, I was able to bring my chair home and that was fine, but then I didn't have this and this and this. And I just didn't want to bother anybody because I didn't want to flag myself. Like that is literally what they would say to me. But now the company made it it was one of their priorities in 2026 to really work on these employees' ergonomics. And so then they were now I can actually tell you that I'm struggling and I need help, And so, and I will tell you too, I went in over the last couple of years now, I've gone in with this sort of assumption based on the research that the pain levels are at around the 10 to 15% levels. And I will tell you, based on now a couple of years of doing this and implementing discomfort surveys across the board, that the pain levels are at like 28 to 40%. So they are way higher than the research will tell you because people are underreporting. So, so we want them to be healthy. We want them to stick around. And you want retention, you want productivity, right? These are all things as HR leaders I know you want. So yeah, being proactive is really important. And back to your point, Michelle, about the budget. The budget's awesome too. If you want to do a workshop and then just say, okay, now you can spend, $500 on equipment. I'd still be a little mindful about that because that person might go buy the pretty chair on Instagram that says it's ergonomic, but it's not. So oftentimes we'll give an equipment list that they can order from that we know is from good brands with really like what is actually ergonomic, something keyboard, split keyboards, mouse, because oftentimes there's things out there that aren't technically ergonomic, but people, if they're just given a blank budget, might make that investment. That's not necessarily going to solve the problem. So providing some sort of equipment list is helpful as well.
Do you have anything, any type of equipment list that you could share with the rebels that we could add to our
Yeah,
newsletter?
I have some basic things on my website. I'm just going to stop my share really quickly so I can pull that link up for you. Yeah, I have an equipment. Anything that I've tested that I feel really strongly about is going to be on this recommended products page of my website, and I'm updating it kind of on a regular basis, so you can grab there. Yeah, exactly. Great point. Gaming chairs is a huge one. There's no lumbar support in a lot of gaming chairs. So it drives me crazy. I'll look at someone in a beautiful gaming chair and I'm like, well, okay, the only adjustment is the height. There's no armchair, armrest, there's no backrest, there's no lumbar. And you've got, like, oh, my son gave me his gaming chair. And it's like a 5'2" female, right? So, and that's not going to work for them properly. So, yeah, you definitely want to keep an eye out for things that are adjustable. And then keyboards that have my favorite keyboard right now on the market is probably this one. Is from a company called Kinesis. And so we've got the elevated keyboard, the split keys with the palm support, with the lack of number key so you can bring your mouse nearby. So, you want to be looking for that kind of equipment. That's really going to make a difference.
I have a
Any other questions? Yeah.
I have a question. So this one where you were showing how our feet are supposed to be once we're sitting, this
Yep.
one feels a little, I have to say a little bit hard because I'm a little bit naughty around that. Like my feet are like this, or I
Yeah.
cross my knees. And
Yeah.
so it's like, are there other positions that are not just like
Yeah.
perfectly sitting and you know can we play with that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's a good question. I will tell you that I'm presenting what the research tells us, right? But I will say that I think the ergonomics research might be a little bit behind some of the active posture break and active sitting recommendations. More and more research is coming out saying that just the more movement, the better. So my guideline to answer that question is try not to sit in that incorrect position for longer than 30 minutes. Kind of on the same sort of creep situation. If you sit with one leg crossed over the other, which I will tell you, I just crossed my leg over the other just now because I was chit-chatting with you, then you want to, 15, 20 minutes later, cross to the other side. If you're someone that likes to sit like so, all right, 15, 20, 30 minutes, switch sides, right? You want to avoid long term sitting with one leg crossed over the other or one leg underneath you because that's going to create imbalances in your pelvis. If you're counteracting that sitting with exercises, so let's say you happen to be sitting slouched for 2 hours because you were deeply involved in a project, but then you get up and you chest stretch and you do some arm circles and you do some stuff to counteract that, that's fine too. You have to kind of work with your body. I'm just going to give you the basic guidelines because again, the overall research shows us that we should be sitting in those proper angles for long-term sitting. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So, I mean, take it as you will. I have some people that say, I stand for 3 hours a day and I feel great. Awesome. It's working for you. You're not in pain. I'm dealing with the 28 to 40% of people that are in pain. And with those people, we have to have some sort of behavioral change modifications in order for us to see a difference in how they're feeling. But if what's working for you is working for you, maybe make some minor adjustments. Keep in mind the 30-minute rule and take it from there.
That's awesome, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anything else? Awesome. We made it all the way to the end of the hour. Thank you all. You have my information. You have my link if you want to have a further conversation. I appreciate the time and attention and very engaged audience. So I appreciate that greatly. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Zeena.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Really good
everybody. Have a
stuff.
great rest of the week. Bye now.